As a mom of two kids, I often find myself feeling pretty worn out, and not just physically, but also emotionally and spiritually as well. This wonderful and rewarding work of motherhood can leave us exhausted and feeling unseen in the work that we do. But we serve the God who sees. And so that is what we are going to dive into today. So, I am a mom of two kids, Judah and Hosanna, who are 4 and 2 years old. And this is such an incredibly fun time, but it is also a just full on and pretty exhausting phase that we're currently in. From sun up to sundown, it is questions and activities and ideas and lots of little needs as well. Both of my kids are still at that age where they need a lot from mama, and it is cuddles and snuggles and kisses for boo-boos and refills on juice and snacks and all sorts of different things like that, which is a joy, but it means giving of myself constantly, and that is 24/7 because they have needs in the middle of the night too. And that really is who we are as moms. It's who God calls us to be as moms, is to be givers of ourselves. Even though my kids are at this current stage, they had a lot of needs before that, and I was giving of myself in a different way when they were infants. And I know that I will be giving of myself in different ways. The way that we give and what we give to our children will just grow and change as they grow and change. But there will always be those needs there, and we will always be giving of ourselves to them. I know my own mom, even now as I'm an adult, she and I have a great relationship, and she still gives of herself. She makes herself available. And again, it's just that lifelong role of being a giver. And so when we're giving like that, we can begin to feel like we are shouldering the full weight of the household. We know that the husband is the head of the household, but in Proverbs 31, we see that this godly woman manages the affairs of her household. So even though we're submitted to our husband, even though he is the head of the household, we have a lot of work to do within the home. And I know we're all nodding our heads with that. Like, yes, absolutely. We are doing so much within our homes. Whether you are a stay-at-home mom or a working mom, managing the affairs of your household is a 24/7 task. And this covers such a range of things when we talk about caring for our household, managing the affairs of our household. It's taking care of the children, making sure that they have all their needs met, being our husband's helper. As it defines in Genesis, we see that God created Eve to be Adam's helper. And for us, that looks like being supportive of our husband in the work that he's doing to provide. And it looks like caring for the home, getting the chores done, getting the groceries done, and having, good meals on the table, having things set in order. And it can also look like managing finances, managing schedules. There's so many different things. Even just saying it sounds pretty exhausting because it is, because in all of these different ways, we are giving of ourselves to our home and to our household and to our family. And at the end of the day, those things all put together can leave us feeling exhausted and also unseen, because these are things that happen within the four walls of our home. They are not really often seen by other people. And even though we know that all of us moms out there, we're all working hard to take care of our families, it can still be a lonely feeling. But we serve such a good God who loves us so much and who sees every single thing that we're doing. And we're going to look at a few encouraging examples of God seeing his beloved children in the Bible, but not just his beloved children, specifically some beloved mothers that God shows up and shows himself to, and they know that they are seen by him. And we are going to start with the story of Hagar, and she is actually the one who gave God the name El Roi, which means the God who sees. So we're going to open up the book of Genesis, and we're going to look at Genesis chapter 16, verse 13. If you don't know the story of Hagar, She was the servant of Sarah, who was Abraham's wife. And now God had made the promise to Abraham that he would be the father of many nations. And yet, years later, Sarah had still not had any children. And so Abraham took matters into his own hands. And so, long story short, Hagar became pregnant by Abraham. And so when we find Hagar, she is pregnant and being mistreated by Sarah, who is, of course, jealous of Hagar, even though it was actually Sarah's idea for them to try to conceive this way. She still found herself feeling bitter towards Hagar and mistreating her. And so Hagar ran away from Sarah. And now Hagar is in the wilderness. She is all alone. She is expecting, and God meets her there. And so we see an angel of the Lord come to Hagar and tell her to return to Sarah, and that the Lord will take care of her, and that her son Ishmael would also become a great nation. And so we're going to pick up in chapter 16, verse 13. She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. That is why the well was called Bir Lahai Roi. It is still there between Kadesh and Bered. But the story of Hagar doesn't end here. Just a few chapters later, in Genesis chapter 21, we see Hagar again on the run, this time with her son as well. So after Isaac is born, Sarah overhears and sees Ishmael laughing at something with Isaac, and so she sends them away. And we see Hagar and her son together in the wilderness, about to die. And again, God meets them where they are. Genesis 21, starting in verse 17, says, God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. And so we see God meeting Hagar, this mother, in the wilderness. And she recognizes that God sees her, that he sees her need, and he is meeting her need. And so that is where, again, we get that beautiful naming of God that Hagar does, where she calls him El Roi, the God who sees me. Another mother who we know God sees is Mary, the mother of Jesus, but not just at the birth of Jesus. Actually, at his death, we see God see Mary. And so we're going to look over in the book of John. We're going to look at chapter 19, because this is where we see Jesus on the cross, and we know that Mary is at the feet of Jesus while he is on the cross. And this is what it says in chapter 19, and we see verses 25 through 27. It says, Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to her, Woman, here is your son, and to the disciple, here is your mother. From that time on, this disciple took her into his home. And even the wording of this is so specific. When Jesus saw his mother there, this is literally God seeing Mary, Jesus seeing Mary and providing for her in her need. While he was on the cross, he saw his mother and met her needs there. And that is the same thing that he does for us. He sees us in our need and he meets us there. And another one that we're going to look at is over in the book of 1 Kings. This is such a neat story. We actually don't ever find out the name of this woman, but she is a mother. This is the widow of Zeraphath. And this is when there was a severe famine and drought in the land brought on by the prayers of Elijah. So Elijah called on this drought in the land, but now Elijah needs something to eat. So God sends him to the widow of Zarephath. So it is just her and her son. And we see this starting in verse 10 of chapter 17. So he went to Zarephath, and when he came to the town gate, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, Would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink? As she was going to get it, he called, "And bring me, please, a piece of bread." "As surely as the Lord our God lives," she replied, "I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I am gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said. But first make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me. And then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." Even reading this, and this is a story that I've known growing up in the church, it's a story that I've known for a long time, but reading it from a mother's perspective is even more emotional, because we see that God is seeing this woman and providing for her. Yes, we're seeing this story being told really from the perspective of Elijah, of him being in need and God providing in this way, but God provided for the woman. She was obedient to him. She went and made the bread for Elijah, and God provided a way for her and her son in the midst of this drought, in the midst of this famine, when she was all alone, just her and her son trying to survive. God did not forget about her, and God sees us in the same way. You know, Psalm chapter 139 verse 8 says that when I rise to the heavens, he is there, and though I go down to the depths, he is there. And it is the same thing for us. You know, the Psalms are just written by David and some others who are pouring out their hearts to God, and we can do the exact same thing in our own lives and know that he is here and that he sees us. You know, when I am changing another diaper, he is there. When I am vacuuming up crumbs from lunch, he is there. When I am loading and unloading the dishwasher, when I'm doing another load of laundry, he is there. When I'm answering another question, why, he is there. When I am waking up in the middle of the night to help my child, he is there. He is always there, and he sees us. God loves us so much with the same love and care that he loved Hagar and Mary and the widow at Zarephath and all these other women that we could use as examples from the Bible. He loves us and he sees us. He is El Roi. So when we are going to bed at night and we are, after another day within our four walls, working to manage the affairs of our household, working to care for our family, we can know that El Roi is the God who sees, and he sees you and he sees me, and he loves us so much in the midst of our motherhood.